In today's video, we're going to go through 5 new Jumpstart decks for the cube. Hey everybody, today we are going to go through 5 new decks that I built for the Jumpstart cube. It's turning out to be a lot of fun, although I haven't really been able to test it because of a certain shutdown that's been happening, but I can't wait to for this all to end, and then we can get back together and we can test it out and see if it's actually any fun. So anyways, in the meantime, I'm just going to keep building. So I got 5 new decks today, but before I begin showing you guys the deck, I want to go through some of the deck guidelines just to remind you if you haven't seen them before. So the first one is that each deck should have a theme, shouldn't be just a mishmash of random stuff. The second thing is that we want to keep the power level moderate. We don't want anyone to be super overpowered, because then that's just going to be the winning deck, and you're not really going to have a lot of fun if you're playing a super powered deck, and you're also not going to have fun if you are not playing that super powered deck. So let's keep it all about the same level of power. Okay, each deck should not be too expensive, so I want to keep the deck cost to be about under $10, and most of the decks shouldn't have a lot of 4-ups. We don't want them to have a ton of consistency, although all of these rules can be broken from time to time. So the first deck that I'm going to go over is one called Fairy Tempo, and here's one where I'm breaking my 4 rule, because we are going to have 4 fairy miscreants. Now they're just crappy little 1/1s, but the idea is that these fairies are super annoying, and they're just going to ping you to death. So you got a whole bunch of 1/1 fairies, and when they enter the battlefield, if you control another fairy miscreant, then you draw a card. Right, so we're going to have a ton of card draw. We also have one Sea Dasher Octopus, which you can flash in, which is also going to give you card draw whenever a creature does combat damage. So because they're flying, you're very likely to draw a lot of cards off of this. The only problem is that all you have is a bunch of 1/1 fairies and one Sea Dasher Octopus that you can make into a 2/1. Right, so it's going to take you a while to ping down your opponents with this. Okay, so how are you going to survive in the meantime? Well, in the meantime, we have things like Counterspell, 1 Lofty Denial, 1 Nullify, 1 Psychic Barrier, and 1 Quench. Right, and so those are going to be your ways of getting those. And then if we also have 1 Curiosity, so whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you can draw a card, and another Curious Obsession, so a creature gets +1/+1. Now if you wanted to make the deck more powerful, you could actually swap out Curiosity for Curious Obsession. I don't think it changes the price very much, but the Curious Obsession would actually give the creature +1/+1, so it's actually just like a better Curiosity. Right, so Curiosity is just, whenever you deal damage to your opponent, you draw a card. This one is whenever you deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card, but you also get +1/+1, and they're both 1 blue, so the Curiosity is just strictly worse. Right, but still, if you don't want to keep the mana power, the power level of this deck a bit lower, then go Curiosity. If you want to increase it, raise Curious Obsession. Right, and then you could also take away some of the counter spells and just go more of a beatdown. But I think overall I've got the right balance. You don't want a deck like this to be super powerful, because your opponents just aren't going to be able to handle so many flyers, right? And every deck has to have some vulnerabilities. So that's it for that one. So the next deck that I'd like to show you guys is one that I like to call Recycling, because it's a red cycling deck. So what this consists of is 4 Drannith Stingers, 2 Desert Ceradons, and 2 Yadaros Wandering Monster. So the 4 Drannith Stingers are basically 2/2s for 2, that when you come out, whenever you cycle a card, you can ping your opponent for 1 damage. Right, so they're going to be pingers there. We got 2 Desert Ceradons, which you can cycle for 1, which enables your Drannith Stinger, but late in the game you can also cast them for 6 mana and you get a 6/4 beater. We also have 2 Yadaro Wandering Monsters, and Yadaro's kind of interesting because you could cycle it for 2. It shuffles back to your back into your library instead of going just straight to the graveyard. But then if you cycle him 4 times, then you get him onto the battlefield, which is an 8/8. You get an 8/8 trample haste turtle. Right, dinosaur turtle. All right, so then we got also 4 of Go for the Blood, which can be used to remove other creatures by forcing them to fight. Right, but Originally, I did not have the Desert Ceradons in, and I put just 4 of Yadaro, but what I felt was that having 4 of in a 40 card deck was just way too consistent, and it's just too easy to cycle it over and over again, which would mean that you would mainly get an 8-8 like very fast in the game, and to have an 8-8 trampling haster out so fast, I think would make this deck super broken. So I decided to take it out and just make it a 2 of to lower the consistency. If you find this to be not too powerful, you can always increase it, like remove a Desert Ceradon and put in Yadaro instead. I'd maybe try 3 and then go to 4 before I'd go any further, just because I think that this has the potential to be too explosive. Next up, we've got a deck called Taxes. Now, Taxes seeks to just tax the crap out of your opponent and make it so their life is hell, just like regular taxes. So we got Acolyte of Zathrid, so 1 mana 0/1, and you can tap it and target player loses 1 life. We got a Bloodseeker, so 2 mana 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player also loses 1 life. We have a Zulaport Cutthroat. When a creature dies, right, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Okay, when Alley Grifters attacks, it's a 3 mana 2/2, but whenever it becomes blocked, defending player discards a card from his or her hand. So you might want to block them, but then you're going to have to discard a card. We've got Accursed Witch, which is a 4/2 for 4, but when it dies, it becomes a curse on your opponent, and at the beginning of the player's upkeep, that player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. On top of that, we got our taxing enchantments. We've got a Vampiric Link, so when our opponent's creatures attack us, we just gain, whenever they'll gain, they'll do damage, and then we gain that much life back. Okay, we have Stab Wound, which gives another creature a -2/-2, and then basically makes it so we gain 2, your opponent loses 2 life every turn. Underworld Dreams, whenever opponent draws a card, they lose a life. Right, we have Mind Whip, so during target creature's controller's upkeep, so you enchant a creature, they have to pay 3, or Mind Whip deals 2 damage to him or her. If Mind Whip deals damage in this way, you tap that creature. Right? We also have Revenge of Ravens, so whenever a creature attacks you or Planeswalker, then that creature's controller loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Torment of Scarabs. Right? At the beginning of the enchanted player's upkeep, that player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. Right? And then we also have Curse of Fool's Wisdom, right, where enchanted player draws a card, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. So just basically a worse Underworld Dreams. Now I also have this here, this Ill-Gotten Inheritance, which is a card that I really like in here. Basically, you can use it to just tax your opponent again, and you could replace it with any of these 1 cards if you really like it. On top of that, we got 7 Swamps and 1 Thriving Moor. So this deck is one that I like to call White Mutation, mainly because it's white and it plays mutations. So we have 3 Mysterious Eggs. Those are going to be the foundations for your mutant creatures. Now this is actually going to be quite powerful because of the consistency here. So we got Mysterious Egg is a 1 mana 0/2, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. That's actually pretty good. But then we also have 3 Cub Wardens. So 3 Cub Wardens is give you a lifelink creature, but whenever this creature mutates, create 2 1/1 white creature cat tokens, right? And they each have lifelink as well. Then following that, you got Huntmaster Liger. So when this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated, and that could be those 1/1 cats from the Cub Warden. Right, and then finally we have 2 of Majestic Auricorn, which is a 4/4 with Vigilance, and whenever this creature mutates, you gain 4 life. Now, this is actually pretty powerful. We also have 1 Oblivion Ring to help people get rid of anything our opponent might have. But the problem is, the way I balanced it was that this ramp is pretty awful, right? So you can cast your Mysterious Egg on turn 1, but you've got nothing for until turn 4, right? So all of these mutations, so you have 4 mana mutation here, 3 mana mutation for Huntsmaster Liger. So you can't really do a ton, and if you don't end up with Mysterious Egg, it could actually take you a while before you get on board. So that's why I've tried to balance this one out. On top of that, we got 7 plains, 1 Thriving Heath, and I tried to capture the mutant, the Ikoria mutant theme to go along with this. Finally, the last deck that I'm going to show you guys today is one that I like to call Vigilant Spirits. So Vigilant Spirits is just a crap ton of spirits that are always watching, right? And so what we have is whole bunch of spirits like Anafenza, the Kin Tree Spirit. So whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to bolster. So put a +1/+1 counter on a creature with the lowest toughness. We get Angelic Page, so a 2-mana 1/1 with flying. Okay, but target attacking or blocking creature can get +1/+1 till end of turn. We've got Bygone Bishop. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, investigate. Right? And look at this. All of our creatures generally 3 or less, except for these two or these 3 guys. So we got a lot of those. Eidolon of Countless Battles. So this can be bestowed, but it is another creature, right? So when it enters the battlefield, your creature gets +1/+1. Right, for each creature you control, and +1/+1 for each aura you control. That's not going to be that relevant because we don't have auras, but we're going to have a lot of creatures. We've got Ghostblade Eidolon, so another bestow creature, but this creature can get +1/+1 and has double strike. We've got Blinking Spirit, so return Blinking Spirit to its owner's hand. You can pay 4 mana for it, but then Anafenza can trigger it over and over again as well. Alright, then we got Celestial Crusader, right? So 4 mana with flash. It also has split second, so if your opponent's doing some shenanigans, you can just shut down the stack. Okay, other white creatures get +1/+1, so it's a lord for all of our creatures, and that's going to really help us out. We got Custody Squire, so it's a 5 mana 3/3 with flying, but when it enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So if you have enchantments or if you have creatures, whatever your opponents vote for, you just vote for the other thing, and then you get them both back. Right, we have a Gallows Warden, so other spirits you control get +0/+1, so it's kind of like a Spirit Lord. And then we always have 3 Always Watching, right? So these creatures are always watching. You get +1/+1 and Vigilance. On top of that, we're going to cap it off with Vivid Meadow and 7 Plains. But I think this actually could be a lot of fun to play and could also be super powerful as well. So those are the 5 decks that I'd like to show you guys today to add to the Jumpstart Cube. I hope you guys like them, and if you do have a favorite deck, show me which one's your favorite. Put it into the comments and I'd like to hear it. Do you have a least favorite one? Let me know that one too. Right? Do you have an idea for a Jumpstart deck? So if you tell me, then maybe you can include it in my next video. And did you remember to like and subscribe to the channel? It really helps out a lot, helps the algorithm, and it supports me, and it doesn't cost you anything. So that's it for today. I'll see you next time.